Hey guys, tonight we drift back hundreds of years past the bright hum of city lights and the gentle purr of your fan to a world where the air is thick with wood smoke, damp hay, and the faint, sour tang of bodies unwashed for days, sometimes weeks. You're standing on a muddy lane in a tiny medieval village. Chickens scurry around your feet. Somewhere a cow shifts in its stall. You can hear the creak of cartwheels and the slosh of water in wooden buckets. And you probably won't survive this. Between the filth in the streets, the questionable water, and the diseases you can't yet name, it's a place where every day is a gamble. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love picturing you, whether it's midnight in Manhattan, sunrise in Sydney, or somewhere in between, tuning in for a quiet, sleepy journey into the past. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It's the year 1325. You are a peasant, neither noble nor merchant, just one of the countless souls bound to the land you work. Dawn spills over the thatched roofs, a pale, cold light that does nothing to warm the frost on the ground. You open your eyes in a cramped one-room hut shared with your family. The air inside is heavy, a mixture of stale breath, damp wool, and the faint ammonia bite of the night's chamber pot. Your bed is a simple straw mattress on a wooden frame if you're lucky, or just a pile of hay in the corner. Beneath you, the rushes on the floor are flattened and darkened with months of dirt, bits of food, and whatever tracked in on your boots. Hygiene, as you might think of it, simply isn't a priority. Bathing is rare, too rare. In summer, you might dunk yourself in the river if you have time, but in winter, the thought alone sends a shiver down your spine. Warm baths are a luxury most peasants never experience. Soap is available in some markets, but it's expensive, often made with harsh lye that stings your skin and smells faintly of ash. More often, you'll just scrub yourself with a cloth and cold water, if at all. Your clothing, worn for days or weeks on end, is thick wool in winter linen in summer. Washing it is a chore that requires hauling water from the well or stream, heating it over a fire, and then beating the fabric on stones. Most peasants might wash their clothes only a handful of times a year. They'll simply air them out in the sun or by the fire to freshen them, the smoke adding its own pungent overlay to the blend of human sweat and lanolin-rich wool. Outside your door, the village path is a churned-up mess of mud and manure. Waste disposal is simple human waste goes into the cesspit out back, or if you're in a hurry, into the ditch beside the road. Livestock wander freely, dropping their own contributions wherever they please. When it rains, everything runs together in a brown, reeking soup that trickles into the streams and ponds. That same water might be what you drink later, unless you're careful to draw from the cleaner upstream sources, though clean is a relative term. The village well is the heart of daily life. You shuffle toward it now, bucket in hand, nodding to neighbors doing the same. Everyone needs water for cooking and brewing ale, which is often safer than drinking it straight. The water has a faint, earthy taste, sometimes a tang of algae if the summer's been hot. There's no concept of microscopic life. No one can see the bacteria or parasites that lurk within. Illness is blamed on bad air, angry spirits, or the displeasure of God. Dental care is virtually non-existent. If your teeth ache, you chew on herbs like sage or mint to dull the pain, or simply endure it until the tooth rots away, or you have it yanked often, without any real tools and certainly without anesthesia. Bad breath is common. Everyone has it. It's simply part of life. Your hands are your tools, calloused and ingrained with dirt that never fully comes out. Fingernails are short from constant work, but rimmed with soil from the fields. You might rinse them before eating, but there's no soap, just water, sometimes a sprinkle of sand or ash to scrub away the worst grime. You eat with your fingers from shared wooden bowls, scooping up pottage, a thick stew of grains and vegetables with rough bread. The bread itself might be flecked with bits of grit from the millstones wearing down your teeth over the years. The smell of the village is a constant companion smoke from every hearth, mingled with the sour reek of sweat, manure, damp earth, and fermenting grain. It's strongest in summer when the heat bakes everything into the air. In winter, the scent turns sharper, frost, and wood smoke with the tang of salted meat curing in smokehouses. You notice it less over time. Your senses adapt. The river is both a lifeline and a hazard. Women gather there to wash clothes, pounding them on rocks, the suds running off into the current. Children splash in the shallows, laughter ringing out, while upstream someone dumps a bucket of waste. Fish are plentiful, but so are leeches, and the water's murk hides any number of unpleasant surprises. Sometimes after a long, hot day, you wade in to rinse off the sweat and dirt shivering as the cold bites your skin. It's refreshing until you step back on shore, and the dust immediately clings again. Your hair is another matter. Men keep it relatively short. Women braid or coil it under simple linen caps. Washing it is rare, maybe a few times a year, so it grows oily and attracts lice. Combings are a daily ritual done with fine-toothed wooden combs that scrape away the worst of the pests. Lice are so common that no one remarks on them. You might crush them between your fingernails or flick them into the fire without breaking conversation. Fleas live in the straw bedding and on the animals leaping onto you without warning. You scratch absent-mindedly, already used to the itch. There are village healers and wise women who know herbs that help with rashes, sores, and fevers. They might give you a paste of honey and garlic for a wound, or a strong-smelling poultice for chest congestion. Some remedies work. Others are more like charms meant to ward off evil. Cleanliness isn't understood in a modern sense. It's about visible dirt and bad smells, not the invisible causes of disease. In the church, you kneel on stone floors, the chill creeping into your knees. The holy water in the font is touched by every parishioner week after week. It smells faintly of metal and dust. You dip your fingers in and make the sign of the cross, never questioning where the water comes from or when it was last changed. Faith is a constant. Germs are not yet a concept. As night falls, you return to your hut. The hearth fire smolders low, casting flickering shadows. You strip down to your shift, climb into bed beside your family, and pull the coarse blanket over you. The air is still thick, but the warmth is welcome. Outside, the wind rustles the thatch, and in the darkness you can hear the soft scurrying of mice. You drift towards sleep, your skin still carrying the day's dust, your hair faintly greasy, your breath tinged with whatever you last ate. This is normal. This is life. And tomorrow it begins again. Morning comes not with the sound of an alarm, but with the slow brightening of pale light through the cracks in the shutters, the distant lowing of cattle, and the rooster's unrelenting crow. You stir beneath the scratchy blanket, every muscle heavy from yesterday's work. The air in the hut is cool and faintly damp. Your breath makes a thin mist in the cold months. The hearth's embers glow faintly, but the fire's warmth is long gone, leaving the room chilled. You rise reluctantly, pulling on your woolen garments stiff from the sweat of previous days. The smell clings to them, faintly sour, earthy, and smoky from evenings spent by the fire. You don't think to wash your face with soap. You simply splash your cheeks with cold water from a wooden bucket, the shock waking you fully. The water has been standing overnight, and a faint skin of dust and debris floats on its surface. You swipe it aside with your hand. It's enough. Hygiene in your life is practical and sparse. You aren't chasing freshness. You're chasing survival. If you wash your hands, it's before kneading bread, or after gutting a chicken, always with plain water. Sometimes you'll rub them with the ashes from the hearth, the gritty powder helping to loosen stubborn grime before you rinse. It's abrasive, yes, but it works and it costs nothing. You head outside your boots, sinking into the soft muck of the village lane. The ground is slick, a mixture of last night's rain, and the ever-present droppings of goats, pigs, and geese. Children dart between huts, their bare feet splashing through puddles without a second thought. Their hair is tangled, their clothes patched over and over their skin, smudged with yesterday's play. Dirt isn't the enemy. It's simply part of the world that clings to everyone. By the well, a small group gathers, waiting their turn. A young boy dips the bucket, the rope creaking as it unspools. When it comes up, brimming, the water shimmers in the morning light, clear enough to trust. You fill your own bucket, the wooden handle pressing hard into your palms. The weight is familiar. The water sloshes as you make your way back, careful not to spill more than you can afford to lose. Every drop matters, whether for cooking, brewing, or rinsing the day's harvest from the fields. Breakfast is simple, coarse bread from yesterday, perhaps softened in a bowl of warm milk if you're lucky. There's no formal washing before you eat, just a casual wipe of your hands on your tunic. The bread is dense, flavored with a faint tang from natural fermentation. You bite into it, the crust flaking, the interior still slightly chewy. The work of the day pulls you outside. You bend to tend the garden, tugging stubborn weeds from the soil. Your hands quickly turn black with earth, the grit finding its way under your nails. You wipe your brow with the back of your wrist, leaving a streak of soil across your forehead. In the fields, you break the clods of dirt with your hoe, the smell of turned earth rich in your nostrils. Sweat forms beneath your woolen garments, dampening the fabric against your skin. There's no thought of changing into something fresh. These clothes are your armor against the chill wind and the rough work alike. At midday, you pause to eat a chunk of cheese, a handful of apples from the last harvest, maybe a strip of dried meat. You drink from a shared skin of ale, the liquid warm from the sun. The ale is mild and cloudy, brewed from barley, and flavored faintly with herbs. It's safer than water, and its faint alcohol content helps keep you healthy in ways you don't understand. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, pass the skin to the next person, and carry on. The sun climbs high. The smell of animals and damp soil fills the air. In the distance, smoke curls lazily from the chimneys of the village, where others tend to cooking fires or boil laundry in great wooden tubs. The process is long and laborious, heating water over an open flame, adding lye or ash to soften the dirt, then beating the clothes with paddles to drive out grime. The steam carries a pungent scent, wet wool wood smoke, and a faint chemical bite from the lye. Once rinsed, the garments are draped over hedges or laid on the grass to dry, where the sun adds its own freshening touch. For your part, bathing remains a rare indulgence. You might strip down at the edge of the river on a warm afternoon, scrubbing yourself quickly with handfuls of water before the chill drives you back out. You let the sun dry your skin, pulling your clothes back on over the dampness. There is no towel, no soap, just water, and the brief luxury of feeling less grimy than usual. Your hair clings wetly to your forehead until it dries into its usual oily weight. When illness strikes, cleanliness plays a strange role. Some believe washing opens the pores and invites sickness in, so they avoid bathing altogether when unwell. Others might encourage gentle washing with herbal infusions, lavender for calming, rosemary for strength. You've seen neighbors hang bundles of dried herbs above their doors to ward off bad air, the scents mixing with the smoke from the hearth. These measures bring comfort, if not always cure. The latrine, if you have one, is a pit in the ground, covered by a simple wooden shelter. In winter, the cold bites cruelly at exposed skin. In summer, flies swarm and the smell is sharp and sour. Many simply use the ditches or nearby hedgerows, the waste left to sink into the soil or wash away with the rain. No one speaks of it. It is a matter as natural as breathing. As evening approaches, the work shifts. You help bring the animals into their pens, brushing the mud from their flanks with a stiff bundle of twigs. The goats nuzzle your hands, leaving a faint, musky smell that lingers. You milk them into wooden pails, the warm liquid frothing slightly. Inside the hearth, fire is rekindled, casting orange light across the walls. The rushes underfoot rustle softly as you move about. These are changed only a few times a year, the old ones taken out to the midden heap to rot down into compost. Fresh rushes bring a faint green smell to the room, but it fades quickly, swallowed by the more persistent odors of cooking and living. You eat your evening meal by firelight pottage again, thick with barley and root vegetables. The wooden spoons pass from hand to hand. No one has their own. The taste is earthy and filling, and you savor it even as the smoke from the hearth makes your eyes water. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve, lean back, and listen to the low hum of conversation around you. Before bed, you might pick through your hair for lice pinching them between your nails. You scratch at the bites on your wrists and ankles, tiny red welts left by fleas. They're bothersome but hardly worth comment. Everyone you know has them. They are the silent companions of the peasant life. You run the fine-toothed comb through your hair, catching tiny white nits in the teeth before flicking them into the fire. The flames pop softly, devouring your unwelcome guests. Night deepens. You stretch out on the straw mattress, the coarse blanket pulled to your chin. The straw crackles faintly beneath you, and the scent of it mixes with the lingering smells of the day smoke, sweat, and earth. The wind rattles the shutters, carrying with it the sound of the stream beyond the village flowing endlessly through the dark. You close your eyes, letting the rhythm of its murmur pull you towards sleep. Tomorrow will be the same, and the day after, and the day after that. This is your life, and you live it without thinking of the word hygiene at all. The rooster crows again before the horizon blushes with dawn, pulling you from a shallow, dream-soaked sleep. The chill clings to your skin. The night's fire has long since died. You draw your blanket closer for a moment, savoring the last fragments of warmth before the day demands your body once more. You rise slowly, your joints stiff from yesterday's toil, and the air smells faintly of damp straw and lingering wood smoke. You move to stir the hearth's ashes, coaxing the smallest ember back to life with a few dry twigs. The smoke curls upward, biting at your eyes as you blow on it. Soon, a tiny flame takes hold, its faint crackle a promise of heat. Into a pot, you pour yesterday's water from the bucket, still a little cloudy, and set it to warm. This will be the closest thing to a morning wash you'll get today. While it heats, you step outside. The village lies quiet in the blue-gray light. The ground is slick with dew, the smell of earth rising up to meet you. You pull your tunic tighter around you, the wool prickling at your neck. Your boots squelch in the mud as you make for the animal pens, pausing to pull the latch on the goat's enclosure. Their eyes gleam at you in the half-light, and their musky scent is sharp in the morning air. As you scatter feed, you remember the river, your only true bathhouse. It's a long walk, and the water is bracing even in summer. You think back to the last time you braved it, stripping down at the bank, teeth chattering as you waded in, scooping water over your head until your scalp tingled. You had scrubbed your arms and chest with a bundle of rough grass, hoping to scrape away the week's sweat. When you stepped back onto shore, you felt cleaner, lighter, but only until the dust of the road clung to your damp skin once more. Inside again, you ladle some of the now warm water into a wooden basin. You cup it in your hands and splash your face, wiping away the sleep grit from your eyes. The water runs down your cheeks and neck, leaving tiny trails through the faint oily sheen on your skin. You rub your hands together briskly, the warmth of the water fading quickly in the cool air. There is no towel. You simply shake off the drops and let them dry on their own. This small act, barely more than a rinse, will have to do. Soap is scarce, and what little there is must be saved for laundry or special occasions. It's made from rendered animal fat and lye boiled together until it thickens, and its harshness can crack the skin if used too often. The smell is strong and smoky, a reminder of the fire that birthed it. You pull a coarse woolen hood over your head and step back into the lane. Your neighbors are already at the well buckets, swinging from their hands. The sound of water sloshing into pails mixes with low voices and the occasional cluck of a chicken wandering too close. You greet them with a nod. Words are scarce this early. The bucket's rope creaks as it descends, then again, as it rises, dripping into the morning light. The well's water tastes fresher today, though it still carries that earthy tang. You drink deeply, letting the coolness wake you fully. It washes the dryness from your mouth, though your teeth feel rough against your tongue. There is a faint ache in one molar, a reminder of the slow rot that no amount of rinsing will cure. You think of the healer's offer to pull it when it gets bad enough, but for now you bear it. By mid-morning, you're in the fields again. The air is damp, the soil clinging to your boots. You bend, pull, and lift in a steady rhythm, your hands black with dirt in minutes. A smear of it crosses your cheek where you've brushed away a strand of hair. You feel the tickle of a louse on your scalp and pinch it between your fingernails without breaking stride. The sun climbs, the work quickens, and soon your tunic is damp with sweat beneath the arms and along your back. When you pause for a drink, you notice the streaks of mud dried on your skin, the way the salt of your sweat stiffens the fabric of your clothes. You could change into another tunic, but it's hardly worth the trouble. Clothes are too precious, too few. Washing them means hauling water, heating it, scrubbing and rinsing until your hands ache. And even then, the stains remain ghosts of the earth you work in every day. Around noon, the air is rich with the smells of cooking fires. You join your family for a meal of pottage, thick with beans and barley. You eat from the shared pot, dipping bread into the steaming mixture, letting the heat loosen the chill in your fingers. The bread's crust is tough, flecked with bran, and the faint grit of stone-ground flour. You chew slowly, swallowing down the occasional grain of sand. A swallow of ale follows warm and faintly sour, a comfort you barely think about. After eating, you tend to the small garden near the hut. You stoop to pull weeds, your hands smelling of damp earth and crushed green stems. The smell is sharp and fresh, a welcome change from the usual musk of wool and sweat. Nearby, a neighbor hangs freshly washed clothes over a low fence, the wet fabric steaming faintly in the sun. She beats a stubborn tunic with a wooden paddle, the sound rhythmic, almost soothing. You know how her arms will ache tonight. By late afternoon, you find yourself at the river's edge again, not to bathe, but to fetch water for the animals. The banks are muddy, the air smelling faintly of algae. A few children splash in the shallows, their laughter carrying across the water. Upstream, a man rinses out a sheep's fleece, the lanolin scent strong even from here. Downstream, a woman empties a bucket of waste, the dark plume swirling away in the current. You keep your bucket upstream of her, but you know the water's never entirely clean. Back at the hut, the evening's work begins. You sweep the rushes on the floor, pushing away bits of straw and crumbs from the day's meals. The rushes are flattened, their green smell long gone, replaced by the faint must of dampness. In the corner, the chamber pot waits to be emptied, the contents destined for the cesspit. The smell is sharp, but it's no worse than any other household's. The animals are fed and penned. You brush straw from your tunic and settle near the hearth as the pot of pottage bubbles again for supper. Its aroma fills the room, mingling with the smoke that drifts lazily toward the rafters. You eat slowly, the day's fatigue settling into your bones. Conversation is quiet, broken only by the clink of spoons against wooden bowls. Before bed, you rake your hair with the fine-toothed comb, wincing as it catches on knots. Tiny pale specks cling to the comb's teeth, and you flick them into the fire. The itch fades for now, though you know it will return. Your skin is warm from the hearth, your eyes heavy. You stretch out on your straw mattress, the blanket pulled tight around your shoulders. Outside, the night air smells of damp soil and the faint tang of wood smoke. Somewhere in the dark, a dog barks once, then again. The sound fades, replaced by the steady rustle of wind in the thatch. You close your eyes, breathing in the mingled scents of smoke, wool, and earth. Tomorrow, the rhythm will begin again. The morning creeps in quietly, a pale mist draped across the fields like a woolen shawl. You wake to the sound of a cart rumbling over the uneven lane, its wooden wheels groaning. The smell of damp straw is thick in the hut, mingled with the faint ammonia of the chamber pot waiting to be emptied. Your blanket is heavy over your legs, but the chill in the air urges you to rise. You swing your feet onto the hard-packed earth floor, the cold biting at your soles through the thin socks. In the dimness, you fumble for your tunic, the wool still creased from yesterday's wear. You shake it out and pull it over your head, the fabric rough against your skin. Your undergarment, if you're fortunate enough to have one, is linen worn thin and softened by years of use. You tie it at the waist with a cord, tugging it snug. A woolen hood goes over your head more for warmth than for cleanliness. The hearth holds nothing but cold ash. You rake through it with a stick, finding only a faint ember buried deep. You coax it with dried twigs, your breath clouding in the air as you blow steadily until a thin flame curls upward. The scent of smoke is immediate and comforting, though it clings to everything: your hair, your clothes, the very walls of the hut. You pour a little water from the bucket into a small wooden basin, your fingers dipping in to test the chill. It's almost icy, your breath catching at the touch. You splash it on your face, rubbing your hands over your eyes and cheeks until the skin tingles. No soap, just the shock of cold water to shake away the heaviness of sleep. You run wet fingers through your hair, pushing it back from your forehead, though it quickly falls forward again, oily from days without a wash. Stepping outside, you find the lane still quiet. Mist curls between the huts, the air smelling faintly of damp earth, and the sweet, sharp scent of split firewood from a neighbor's chopping block. Your boots sink slightly in the mud as you make your way toward the pens. The goats shift and bleat softly, their breath steaming in the cool morning air. You run a hand over their coarse hair, feeling bits of straw caught in it. Their musky scent clings to your palm as you guide them toward feed. The well is your next stop. A few villagers are already there, buckets in hand, their breath rising in white puffs. The rope creaks as the bucket descends, the splash echoing from the darkness below. When it comes up, water runs in rivulets down its sides, glistening in the weak morning light. You fill your bucket and balance its weight carefully as you head back. Every step is deliberate. Spilling means another trip. Inside, you set the water near the hearth, where it will gradually lose its chill. Some will go toward the day's cooking, some for drinking, and perhaps a small portion for rinsing hands before meals. You rub your palms together absently, feeling the faint grit of yesterday's work still ground into the skin. The dirt never truly leaves. It lives in the creases under the nails, a permanent mark of your labor. The day begins with mending. You sit by the hearth, pulling a wooden needle threaded with coarse yarn through the frayed edge of a sleeve. The fabric smells faintly of smoke and lanolin, the natural oils in the wool holding on to every scent it meets. Washing it would risk shrinking or felting the garment, so repairs are the more practical choice. You work slowly, the rhythm of stitch and pull steadying your thoughts. By late morning, the village stirs to life. Chickens scuttle between huts, their feathers ruffled against the damp. Somewhere a dog barks at a passing cart. The air fills with the mingled scents of baking bread, wood smoke, and the faint sourness of manure. You join others in the fields, pulling weeds from between rows of cabbage. Your fingers sink into the cool soil, the earthy smell rich and grounding. Bits of dirt cling stubbornly to your skin, packing under your nails. You wipe your hands on your tunic, leaving dark smudges that blend with older stains. At midday, you rest against a fence post, tearing a piece from a loaf of bread. It's hard enough to need soaking in ale before you can chew it without straining your jaw. The ale is warm from being carried in a leather flask, its flavor mildly bitter. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand and watch a group of children chasing each other near the well, their laughter ringing clear in the air. Their clothes are ragged, patched at knees and elbows, but their cheeks are flushed with life. In the afternoon, laundry is being done by the river. You wander down to watch for a moment, drawn by the rhythmic slap of wet cloth on stone. Women kneel at the bank skirts, tucked up their hands raw from the cold water. The wet fabric releases the faint smell of sweat and smoke as it's beaten clean. Soap is rare here. Instead, ashes or fine sand are rubbed into the fabric to scour it before rinsing. The garments are laid on bushes or low branches to dry steam rising faintly in the sun. The whole process is backbreaking, and even freshly laundered clothes will carry the scent of smoke and the river. By evening, you're back near the hearth. The pot of pottage simmers quietly, filling the hut with the smell of barley and turnips. The rushes on the floor are swept into neater piles, though they are far from fresh. Small bones, crumbs, and bits of straw hide among them, only partially cleared away. In time they'll be replaced, but not tonight. You eat slowly, letting the warmth of the food sink into your belly. Conversation is sparse. The day's work has drained the energy for chatter. Afterward, you sit with your comb, drawing it through your hair in long strokes. The teeth catch on tangles pulling slightly at your scalp. Now and then you find a louse and crush it between your nails. The comb's fine teeth scrape against your scalp, offering a small, satisfying relief from the ever-present itch. Before bed, you step outside one last time. The air is crisp, carrying the distant sound of water over stones. The mist has lifted, revealing a sky scattered with cold stars. Somewhere in the dark, an owl calls. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the cool night air, the scent of damp soil and wood smoke mingling in your senses. Back inside, you crawl under the blanket, the straw mattress shifting beneath you. The warmth from the hearth has faded, leaving only the shared body heat of those beside you. You close your eyes, the day's grime still clinging to your skin, the smell of wool and smoke filling your nose. Sleep comes slowly, but when it does, it's deep, carrying you into another cycle of the same endless, ordinary life. Dawn presses against the shutters, thin light seeping into the dim room. You wake to the faint rustle of straw as someone shifts nearby, the muted cough of a child, the soft cooing of a pigeon roosting in the rafters. The smell in the hut is a familiar layering old smoke, wool, damp earth, and the sour trace of last night's chamber pot. You push the blanket back, the cool air sliding over your skin, and sit up slowly, rubbing the sleep from your eyes. There is no thought of a fresh change of clothes. You reach for the same tunic you wore yesterday and the day before. The wool is soft in places, from long wear rough in others, where it's been patched. Pulling it on, you feel the stiffness in your shoulders, the ache in your hands from yesterday's work. You tug on your boots, the leather softened by years of use, still carrying the faint odor of damp mud that never truly fades. The hearth is cold again. You kneel before it, pushing aside the ash until you find a spark if you're lucky. Today, there's none. You strike flint against steel, catching the spark on a twist of dried grass until it glows. You blow gently, coaxing it into a flicker, feeding it with kindling until the flame grows steady. The smell of fresh smoke curls through the air, sinking into the very fibers of the room. You dip a wooden ladle into the water bucket, the surface rippling. The water is slightly cloudy. Perhaps it's time for a fresh trip to the well. Still, you pour some into a shallow basin and splash your face. The shock of cold makes you gasp quietly. You rub at your eyes and cheeks, the water running down your neck in thin streams, leaving faint tracks in the fine film of oil and dust. No towel, just the air drying your skin as you move. Outside, the village hums faintly with morning life. Somewhere a dog barks at nothing in particular. A thin mist hangs low, softening the shapes of huts and fences. You make your way toward the animal pens, your boots sinking into the damp earth. The goats bleat in greeting their breath misting in the cool air. You scatter feed the dry grain rattling against the wooden trough. Their smell, musky and faintly sweet, lingers on your hands as you turn toward the well. The well is busy today. Villagers stand in line, buckets in hand, chatting in low tones. A woman ahead of you rubs her arms briskly, her shawl drawn tight. The bucket descends, rope groaning on the windlass, then rises, dripping the water, shimmering faintly in the gray light. You fill your pail and step aside, careful with your footing. The ground here is slick from countless spills. Carrying the weight is second nature, your body leaning into the strain. Back at the hut, the water is set near the hearth. Some will be for cooking, some for drinking, and perhaps a little for rinsing hands before meals. Your hands, you notice, are already streaked with dirt from the morning chores. The grime sits in the lines of your palms, dark crescents under your nails. You rub them together absently, knowing it will take more than a quick rinse to shift it. By mid-morning, you are in the fields. The soil is damp, clumping around the blade of your hoe. You bend and straighten in rhythm, the work loosening the stiffness in your limbs, even as it tires them anew. The sun pushes through the clouds, bringing with it the smell of warming earth. Sweat gathers at your temples, dampening your hair beneath the hood. You wipe your brow with the back of your hand, leaving a dark streak across your skin. At midday, you share a meal with others, bread, a wedge of cheese, a flask of ale passed from hand to hand. The bread is coarse, its crust flaking into your lap as you tear off a piece. The cheese is sharp, its tang lingering on your tongue. The ale washes it down warm and faintly bitter. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve, the fabric rough against your skin. The afternoon takes you to the river, not for bathing, but for water to scrub a few pieces of clothing. You kneel at the bank, dipping the garments into the cold current. The water bites at your hands until they ache. You rub the cloth against itself, working loose the dirt, then wring it out hard. Without soap, the smell of smoke and sweat only fades, never vanishes. You spread the damp garments on bushes nearby, the breeze tugging gently at them. On the walk back, you pass neighbors tending their own chores, splitting wood, repairing fences, hanging freshly caught fish to dry. The air is busy with scents, sap from the cut wood, the metallic tang of fish blood, the faint sweetness of early blossoms in a nearby hedgerow. Over all of it lies the steady presence of smoke curling from every chimney. Evening brings you back to the hearth. The pottage bubbles gently filling the hut with a rich, earthy smell. You stir it with a long-handled spoon, watching steam curl upward. The rushes on the floor whisper under your feet as you move, their scent long since faded to a faint mustiness. The chamber pot is emptied into the cesspit, the task unpleasant but necessary. The odor clings stubbornly even after you rinse the pot with a splash of water. After supper, you sit with your comb. The teeth work through your hair, slowly catching on knots, scraping lightly against your scalp. Each pass brings a small flurry of dust. A stray hair, sometimes a pale louse that you crush without hesitation. The ritual is oddly calming, a small piece of control in a world where much is left to chance. Before bed, you step outside. The night air is cool, brushing against your cheeks. The stars are dim tonight, blurred by a thin haze. The village lies quiet, but for the distant low of cattle. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs with the mingled scents of earth and smoke, and feel the heaviness of the day settle into your bones. Back inside, you lower yourself onto the straw mattress, pulling the blanket up to your chin. The straw shifts softly beneath you, the faint crackle a familiar lullaby. You close your eyes, letting the warmth of the hearth's dying embers and the muffled breathing of those nearby draw you towards sleep. Another day has passed, marked not by novelty, but by the steady rhythm of a life where hygiene is a matter of survival, not comfort. Morning returns with its usual quiet insistence, a gray light pressing at the edges of the shutters. You open your eyes to the muffled clatter of someone shifting near the hearth, the dull thump of firewood being dropped onto the floor. The scent of cold ash lingers in the air, mixed with the faint musk of wool blankets, and the sharper tang from the chamber pot, which someone will empty before long. Your limbs feel heavy, your back stiff from the straw mattress that gave little comfort in the night. You sit up slowly, rubbing warmth into your arms. The tunic you reach for is the same one you've worn all week. There's no rotation of fresh garments waiting for you, no drawer to open. The wool smells of sweat, wood smoke, and the earth you've worked in. You pull it over your head anyway, the familiarity almost comforting. A cord at the waist, worn smooth from years of use, keeps it snug. The hearth is low and sullen, only the faintest ember hiding beneath the white drift of ash. You crouch and coax it with dry splinters, your breath clouding in the cold air. The smoke curls upward, thin at first, then thickening as the flame takes hold. Its smell will cling to you for the rest of the day, weaving itself into your hair and clothes like an unshakable perfume. From the water bucket, you pour a ladle into the basin, dipping your fingers into the icy surface. The cold bites instantly, but you cup your hands and splash it onto your face, rubbing at your cheeks and eyes. The shock clears away the last of your sleepiness, leaving your skin tingling. You run damp fingers through your hair, pushing it away from your eyes, though the oiliness from long days without washing makes it fall back quickly. Outside the village lane is a patchwork of puddles from last night's rain. The air smells of wet earth and smoke, and somewhere the sour scent of manure rides on the breeze. You make your way to the animal pens, your boots sinking into the soft mud. The goats greet you with their usual bleating, pressing their noses into your hands in search of feed. Their warmth is a comfort, even if their musky scent will stay on your skin until the next river wash. The well is busy this morning. Villagers stand with buckets and yokes balanced on their shoulders, trading quiet greetings. The rope squeals as the bucket goes down, then splashes into the darkness. When it comes up, the water spills over the rim, splattering on the stones. You take your turn filling your bucket and feeling the weight pull against your arms as you lift. The water's surface quivers, catching the pale light of morning. Back home, you set the bucket near the hearth. Some will be used for cooking, some for drinking, and perhaps a little for rinsing hands and faces before meals. You glance at your hands already marked with dirt from the morning's work. The lines in your palms are dark, your nails rimmed in soil. A quick rinse will make little difference. The grime seems woven into your skin by now. Mid-morning finds you in the fields, the soil clinging in thick clumps to the blade of your hoe. You work steadily, the rhythm of bending and lifting familiar to your body. The sun breaks through the clouds briefly, and with it comes the smell of damp earth warming. You wipe your brow with your sleeve, leaving a dark smear on the coarse wool. Sweat prickles beneath your garments, dampening them until they cling. At noon, you sit against a fence post with others tearing at a loaf of bread, tough enough to make your jaw ache. You soften it with a sip of ale from a shared flask, its faint bitterness cutting through the bread's heaviness. The air smells faintly sweet now, the fields warming under the midday sun. Children run past their bare feet, kicking up small clods of dirt, laughter chasing them down the lane. The afternoon brings you to the river not for bathing, but for cleaning a few tools and fetching water for the animals. You kneel at the bank, dipping your hands into the current. The cold stings sharply numbing your fingers as you scrub the wooden handles with handfuls of wet sand. The grit works well enough, though it leaves your skin raw. Upstream, a woman kneels in the shallows, beating a tunic against a rock, the sound carrying over the water. Downstream, a boy splashes at the edge, his skin glistening in the sun. The river is everything washhouse, bath, drinking source, and yet it never feels clean. By evening, the village has a faint golden glow as the sun lowers smoke rising from every chimney. You sweep the rushes on your floor into rough piles, the dry stalks crackling underfoot. Bits of straw and crumbs skitter into the corners. The chamber pot is emptied into the cesspit, the sharp odor briefly overpowering the gentler scent of cooking pottage. You rinse it with a splash of water, but the smell lingers. Supper is the same humble fare, a thick stew of barley cabbage and beans served from a shared pot. You eat slowly, letting the warmth fill you. The spoons clink softly against wooden bowls, the sound mingling with the low murmur of voices. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve, leaning back slightly as the day's work settles into your bones. After the meal, you sit with your comb, drawing it through your hair in long, careful strokes. The teeth scrape lightly at your scalp, catching on tangles. Every so often, a pale louse clings to the comb's edge, and you crush it between your nails before tossing it into the fire. The flames pop softly, sending up the faint smell of burning chitin. Outside, night settles in. The air is cool and damp, smelling of earth, and the faint metallic tang of dew forming on the grass. The village is quiet, but for the occasional creak of wood as a cart shifts or the distant low of cattle. The stars are bright tonight, scattered like salt across the black sky. You breathe deeply, the coolness filling your chest before stepping back inside. You lie down on the straw mattress, the blanket heavy over you. The smell of wool smoke and the day's sweat surrounds you, as constant and familiar as the creak of the rafters in the wind. You close your eyes, listening to the muffled breathing around you, and let the weight of sleep pull you under. Another day of work, another day of grime and smoke, another day of life as it has always been. You wake before the rooster, this time stirred by the slow creak of the roof beams in the night wind. For a moment you lie still beneath the blanket, the world beyond your closed eyes, nothing but the faint smell of wood smoke and the warmth of other sleeping bodies nearby. When you finally open them, you see only the dull gray of pre-dawn through the narrow cracks in the shutters. The air is cold, heavy with dampness. Pulling yourself upright, you feel the familiar pull of stiffness in your back. The straw mattress rustles as you shift, a dry whisper that's been part of your mornings for as long as you can remember. Your tunic hangs on a peg by the hearth, and you pull it on the wool settling around your shoulders like an old companion. The scent that rises from it is the same as yesterday's smoke, sweat, and earth. It doesn't matter. It's the only tunic you have that isn't worn to rags. The hearth is nothing but a bed of pale ash this morning. You crouch and begin the slow ritual, pushing aside the ash with the tip of a stick, searching for a buried ember. When you find none, you strike flint against steel until a spark leaps onto the twist of dried grass you've prepared. Your breath coaxes it to life and the faint orange glow spreads to the kindling. Smoke threads upward, bitter and sharp in your nose. The smell will cling to your hair until the next time you wash in the river, whenever that might be. You ladle cold water into the basin, dipping your hands in and splashing your face. The icy touch makes your skin prickle, your breath catch. You rub briskly at your cheeks and neck, feeling the fine grit of dried sweat, and dust lift away in small measure. Your hair, you leave alone combing it, will come later when the day's work is done. Outside, the lane is already showing the tracks of early risers, hoofprints, bootprints, and the faint grooves of cartwheels. A thin mist hovers just above the ground. The air smells of wet straw and the faint sourness of manure with a sharper note of pine resin drifting from someone's kindling pile. At the pens, the goats greet you with low, insistent bleats. Their breath fogs in the morning air as they press close to you, noses nudging at your hands. You feed them from the trough, scattering the grain in a slow, steady rhythm. Their warmth and the faint roughness of their coats are familiar comforts, even if the smell of them will follow you all day. The well is quiet for now. You lower the bucket, the rope groaning over the wheel, and hear the splash as it hits the water below. The bucket comes up glistening, and you fill your pail, the wood handle biting into your palms as you carry it back. Each step must be careful. The mud from last night's rain is slick underfoot, and a spill means another trip. Back at the hut, you pour some water into the cooking pot, the rest into a smaller vessel for drinking. Your hands are already dirty again from the chores. The creases of your skin darkened your nails holding small crescents of earth. There's no point in cleaning them yet. More work awaits. Mid-morning finds you in the fields bending low to inspect the tender green shoots. The soil is cool and damp against your fingertips as you pull away weeds. You straighten now and then, your back protesting, and glance toward the far hedgerow where someone is cutting bundles of willow. The smell of fresh-cut wood reaches you on the breeze, sharp and clean, amid the heavier scents of earth and animals. At midday, you sit with others in a patch of weak sunlight, breaking bread and passing a flask of ale between you. The bread is dense, its crust hardened from days in storage. The ale is warm but familiar, its faint bitterness welcome. You eat slowly, letting the sun soak into your shoulders. Laughter drifts from a small group nearby, though it's softened by the wind. In the afternoon, you walk to the river not for yourself, but to help a neighbor rinse the fleece of a recently sheared sheep. The lanolin from the wool coats your hands, making them slick even in the cold water. The fleece is heavy when wet, and the smell is a strong mix of animal river and the faint sourness of unwashed wool. You wring out as much as you can, your arms aching from the effort. You pass others on the bank, women beating laundry against the stones. Children tossing sticks into the current. A man washing the mud from his boots. The river's constant gurgle is the background to all of it, carrying with it both life and the quiet threat of sickness. You know better than to drink from it directly, though sometimes when thirst bites deep in the fields, you risk a quick handful. Evening comes with the slow dimming of light and the first curls of smoke rising from chimneys. Back in the hut, you sweep the rushes, the dry stalks rasping softly underfoot. Bits of chaff and crumbs collect in the dustpan destined for the midden heap. You empty the chamber pot into the cesspit, the smell strong enough to make your eyes water, Then rinse it with a quick splash of water before returning it to its corner. Supper is a pottage thickened with grains, the vegetables soft from long simmering. You eat in quiet company, the occasional clink of spoons against bowls punctuating the stillness. The warmth seeps into your hands as you hold the bowl into your belly as you swallow. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve and lean back slightly, feeling the slow pull of weariness. Before bed, you take the fine-toothed comb and work it through your hair. The teeth scrape lightly over your scalp, catching on knots and dragging out bits of debris. A few lice appear in the comb's teeth, and you crush them between your nails before flicking them into the fire. The flames flare briefly, a faint crackle marking their end. The combing leaves your head tingling, though you know the itch will return. Stepping outside, you see the moon hanging low, its light silvering the damp earth. The night air is cool and carries the scent of wood smoke and the faint mineral tang of dew settling on the ground. The village is quiet now, save for the occasional bark of a dog or the far-off call of a nightbird. Inside, you lie down on the straw mattress, drawing the blanket up around your chin. The straw shifts with a familiar whisper beneath you, the smell of it mingling with wool and the day's work still clinging to your skin. You close your eyes, feeling the gentle pull of sleep. Tomorrow will bring the same rhythm, the same sense, the same grime, the same quiet persistence of life lived close to the earth. The first sound you hear is the soft creak of the hut's timbers shifting in the morning chill. Then the rooster's call cuts across the stillness, followed by the answering bleat of a goat from the pens. You open your eyes to the dim light seeping in the smell of damp wool and old smoke hanging heavy in the air. The straw beneath you rustles as you sit up, grains sticking to your tunic, where the blanket slipped away in the night. Your body feels reluctant this morning, slower to shake off the stiffness from yesterday's work. You pull on the same woolen tunic. There's no second one waiting, only this, and the one so threadbare it's hardly worth wearing. The wool is coarse against your skin, and it carries the same familiar medley of scents, sweat soaked into the fibers, smoke that never leaves, and the faint tang of earth. You cinch the cord around your waist and step into your boots, still damp from the mud. The hearth has gone cold. You kneel before it, shifting the ash with a stick until you uncover a few faint embers. You feed them twigs and dried grass, blowing until the orange glow spreads. The first whiff of smoke curls upward, sharp and biting in your nose. It's the smell that will cling to your hands, your clothes, your hair by the end of the day, just as it has every day of your life. From the water bucket, you pour a small amount into the wooden basin. The surface ripples in the pale light. You dip your hands, the cold stabbing at your skin, and splash your face until it tingles. The water trickles down your neck, slipping under your collar. You rub briskly, but without soap, it's only a token cleansing. Your hair, you push back with wet fingers, the dampness helping to tame it for now. Stepping outside, you are greeted by the sight of the village in the low morning mist. The lane is still quiet, though the smell of livestock and the faint, sweet rot of damp hay already hang in the air. Your boots squelch in the mud as you cross to the pens. The goats shuffle toward you, their warm, solid forms pressing against your legs. You feed them grain from a bucket, the dry rattle of it echoing in the crisp air. Their coarse hair brushes your hands, leaving behind their scent. The well is busier than usual. A small knot of villagers stands waiting, buckets in hand, their breath rising in faint clouds. The wooden wheel creaks as the rope lowers the splash below deep and hollow. You draw your turn, the water brimming over the bucket's rim, spilling onto the stones. You balance the pail carefully as you make your way back, the weight steadying you with each step. Inside, you set the water near the hearth, saving most for cooking and drinking. A smaller share will go to rinsing hands before meals, though it's never quite enough to feel clean. Dirt has already settled into the creases of your palms from the morning chores. You rub your hands together idly, knowing the day will only deepen the stains. In the fields, the damp earth clings to your boots as you work. You bend low, pulling weeds, the smell of fresh soil rising each time you disturb it. The chill air makes your fingers ache, but you work steadily, warmed gradually by the effort. Birds call from the hedgerows, their quick notes cutting through the softer sounds of work. Your hair falls forward, brushing your cheeks, and you push it back with a dirt-streaked hand. When noon comes, you share bread and ale with those nearby. The bread is hard, the crust giving way with effort. You soften it with a sip of ale, its faint bitterness washing away the dryness in your throat. The air feels slightly warmer now, the sun reaching down between shifting clouds. You stretch your back, squinting toward the far fields where smoke rises from a small fire. The afternoon takes you to the river with a small bundle of clothes to rinse. The water is frigid, numbing your hands as you dunk each garment, scrubbing them against themselves. Without soap, the smell of smoke and sweat will linger even after drying. You wring them hard droplets, scattering on the stones, and lay them across bushes to dry in the pale sun. Others are working nearby, a woman beating a tunic on a flat rock, a child chasing ducks along the bank, a man scrubbing his hands after gutting fish. The river's constant murmur is the thread that ties all of you together. By late afternoon, you return home with the damp clothes bundled under your arm. The smell of cooking drifts from other huts, mingling with the ever-present smoke. You sweep the rushes on your floor, the brittle stalks rasping under your boots. Crumbs, straw, and the grit from the day's work gather in a pile which you push toward the door. The chamber pot is emptied into the cesspit, the sourness curling in your nose despite your attempts not to breathe deeply. Evening settles in with a slow fading of light. The hearth fire grows stronger as you set the pot of pottage to simmer. Barley beans and the last of the turnips soften in the bubbling broth, filling the room with their earthy scent. You eat slowly, savoring the warmth after the day's chill. Around you, the low murmur of voices mingles with the occasional clink of spoons. After supper, you take up the fine-toothed comb, working it through your hair in long, slow strokes. The teeth scrape lightly at your scalp, catching now and then on a knot. A few lice appear between the teeth. You crush them without hesitation, flicking the remains into the fire. The flames crackle softly, swallowing your tiny enemies. Your head tingles faintly, the itch quieted for now. You step outside for a final moment before bed. The night air is cool and smells faintly of damp grass and wood smoke. The moon casts a pale light across the village, silvering the puddles in the lane. Somewhere a dog barks, answered faintly by another far off. You stand still, letting the quiet settle into you. Back inside, you lie down on the straw mattress, drawing the coarse blanket up to your chin. The straw shifts beneath you, the faint rustle as familiar as your own breathing. The smell of wool and smoke wraps around you, a constant reminder of the life you lead. You close your eyes, letting sleep creep in slowly, carrying you toward another day of the same enduring rhythm. The wind has been restless through the night, sighing around the corners of the hut, nudging the shutters, so they creak faintly in their hinges. You wake to that sound and to the dim gray of another morning, just beginning. The air is cold against your cheeks, your breath a faint mist in front of you. Beside you, the soft breathing of your kin is steady. The shared body warmth is the only thing that kept the chill from gnawing too deep in the dark hours. When you sit up, the straw shifts beneath you with its dry, papery rustle. Your tunic hangs on the same wooden peg as always, waiting for you like a second skin. It smells of everything your days are made of: earth, smoke, sweat, and though it is far from clean, it is familiar. You pull it on, fastening it with the worn cord at your waist. The coarse fabric scratches lightly against your arms, but that is simply what clothing feels like. The hearth is a mound of pale ash, the embers long since faded. You crouch low and start the morning's work of fire-making flint against steel. The tiny spark caught in a curl of dry grass. Your breath gentle but insistent, until the faint orange glow turns to a flame. It is a skill so woven into your life you scarcely think about it. The first twist of smoke rises sharp and acrid, and in moments the hut smells like morning. You pour a ladle of water from the bucket into a wooden basin. The water is cool, holding a faint, earthy tang from the well. You splash it onto your face, the shock waking you completely. The chill spreads down your neck, making you gasp. You rub briskly at your cheeks, leaving faint streaks where the grime has loosened. Your hair still matted from sleep, you push back with damp fingers. Outside, the lane glistens faintly from a night's light rain. The smell of wet earth rises with every step you take toward the pens. A goose waddles across your path, its webbed feet leaving small, splayed prints in the mud. The goats greet you with their usual insistence, their coarse coats brushing against you as they press close for feed. You pour grain into their trough, the sound rattling in the quiet. Their warm breath steams in the chill, mingling with the damp air. The well is already surrounded by a few early risers. The rope creaks as buckets go down and come up, spilling little arcs of water back into the depths. You take your turn, the weight of the full bucket dragging against your arms as you lift. The wood handle digs into your palms as you carry it back your boots, squelching in the softened earth. Back inside the bucket is set near the hearth. A little will be saved for rinsing hands, but most will go into cooking and drinking. Your hands are already stained with the morning's work. The lines of your palms, darkened nails edged in soil. You could rinse them now, but you know the fields will only return them to this same state before long. The day's work begins in earnest in the cabbage patch. You crouch low, the damp earth seeping cold into your knees. Pulling weeds, you catch the faint green smell of crushed leaves sharp in the cold air. Earth clings to your fingers, packing under your nails. You wipe your hands on your tunic, but the dirt only smears, blending with older stains. Your breath clouds faintly each time you exhale. At midday, the sun shows itself briefly through the clouds. You take your place in the small knot of workers, resting on a low fence, breaking bread, and passing a flask of ale. The bread is hard, and you chew it slowly, softening it with small sips of the warm, bitter drink. There's little talk. The quiet between you all is companionable, a shared understanding that the work resumes soon enough. The afternoon takes you to the river, a hoe in hand, to clean of caked mud. The cold water stings at first, then numbs your fingers as you work. You rub the metal blade with wet sand, scouring away the grime. The river smells faintly of algae, its murmur constant, a sound as familiar as breathing. Others work nearby, a woman beating laundry on a flat stone, a man shaking mud from his boots in the shallows. Children dart along the bank, their bare feet splashing water into the air. By late day, you return to the hut with chilled fingers and damp boots. The rushes on the floor whisper underfoot as you sweep them into piles. Bits of straw, crumbs, and grit scatter toward the door, a small satisfaction in tidying what can be tidied. The chamber pot is emptied into the cesspit, the sharp odor curling in your nose until you turn away. A quick rinse with water dulls it, though the smell never truly goes. The fire is stronger now, its heat pushing back the chill as the pottage simmers. Barley and beans thicken in the pot, the scent filling the hut with warmth before the food even reaches your lips. You eat slowly, letting the steam warm your face. The spoons click softly against wooden bowls in the dimming light. After supper, you sit with your fine-toothed comb drawing it carefully through your hair. The teeth scrape your scalp, lifting away tiny flakes of skin along with the day's loose hairs. Now and again, you trap a louse between the teeth and your thumb crushing it with a small, practiced pressure before flicking it into the fire. The flames accept these offerings without fuss, their quiet crackle filling the space between heartbeats. Stepping outside before bed, you find the lane washed in silver from the moon. The puddles gleam like dark mirrors reflecting the scattered stars above. The air is cool, freshened by the earlier rain, and carries the smell of wet leaves from the hedgerow. A dog barks somewhere beyond the far end of the village, the sound muffled by distance. Inside again, you settle onto the straw mattress, pulling the coarse blanket up to your chin. The straw's faint rustle is joined by the distant murmur of the wind outside. The warmth of the fire lingers faintly, but it's the heaviness of your own weariness that pulls you toward sleep. You close your eyes, and the world shrinks to the soft sound of breathing around you, the smell of wool and smoke close at hand. Another day has ended exactly as it began. The night has been restless. Wind and the occasional patter of rain tapped at the roof, a thin and uneven drumming that seemed to come and go with the clouds. You wake to its memory rather than its presence, the air now still and heavy. The faint blue-gray light creeping into the hut is enough to sketch out the shapes of sleeping bodies, the bundle of blankets, the low form of the hearth, cold and ashen. You shift under the blanket, feeling the stiffness in your back and legs. The straw mattress crunches faintly as you roll onto your side and then push yourself upright. You reach for your tunic, folded once over the same wooden peg where it hangs every night. It carries yesterday's work with it, the scent of damp earth, faint sweat, smoke embedded so deeply it will never wash out. You pull it over your head, the coarse wool prickling where it touches your skin. The same cord binds it at your waist. Your boots are stiff with dried mud. You work your feet into them anyway. The hearth is nothing but the pale dust of ash. You kneel in front of it, searching through the mound for a buried ember, but find none. Flint against steel produces a spark soon enough. You catch it in a twist of dry grass, blow, until the ember glows and feed it with small twigs. The smoke rises in a pale ribbon, carrying its sharp bite into your nostrils. It's a scent you know will follow you from this moment until you lie down again tonight. From the water bucket, you scoop a ladle into the basin. The water smells faintly of the well cool, a little earthy. You splash it over your face, the shock waking you fully. Droplets run down your neck, seeping under your collar. You rub briskly at your cheeks, not expecting to feel clean, just awake. Your hair you leave untouched for now. The fine-toothed comb waits for the end of the day. Stepping outside, you are met with a lane littered with puddles. The sky is a low, unbroken gray. The smell of wet mud rises from underfoot, mingled with the heavier odor of the livestock pens. A pair of ducks waddle past their feet, slapping softly against the damp ground. The goats shift restlessly as you approach their bleats, a familiar morning chorus. You feed them from the trough, the dry clatter of grain loud in the quiet. Their noses nudge at your hands, leaving the faint trace of their musky breath behind. The well is busy. A line of villagers waits their turn, buckets in hand, exchanging murmured greetings. The rope groans on the windlass as a bucket descends and splashes far below. When it comes up, the water spills over the rim, splattering onto the stones underfoot. You fill your own bucket, the weight steady but heavy against your grip as you carry it home. The ground here is slick from spills, and you tread carefully to keep from losing your load. Inside again, you set the bucket near the hearth. The water is for cooking and drinking, first washing last. Your hands are already streaked with dirt from feeding the goats and working the rope at the well. The grime is ground in too deep for a quick rinse to make much difference. The day's work takes you to the fields. The soil is soft from the night's rain clinging to your boots with each step. You bend low to pull weeds, the damp seeping into your knees through the wool. The smell of crushed plants rises with each pull, fresh and green. Worms twist in the turned earth, their slick forms glinting in the low light. You flick them aside, working steadily down the row. Midday finds you leaning against a fence post, tearing a piece from a loaf of bread. It is dense and chewy, a small wedge of cheese to soften its dryness. The cheese is sharp, crumbling slightly under your fingers. You wash it down with a sip of ale from a shared flask, the warmth of it spreading through your chest. The clouds shift briefly, letting through a pale beam of sun that glances off the wet grass. The afternoon brings you to the river with a small bundle of laundry. The current is cold and quick today, tugging at the garments as you plunge them under. Without soap, you rely on the water's chill and your own strength rubbing cloth against cloth to loosen the grime. The smell of smoke clings even after rinsing. It is as much a part of the garment now as the threads themselves. You wring them hard, your knuckles whitening with the effort, and lay them across low branches to dry. Nearby others are at their own work, a woman beating a sheet on a flat rock, a boy crouching at the edge to fill a bucket for his family's animals, an older man repairing a net. The murmur of voices blends with the river's endless rushing. Somewhere downstream, a dog splashes noisily in the shallows, shaking itself after each bound. By the time you return to the hut, the light has begun to fade. The air carries the mingled smells of smoke and cooking the whole village preparing its evening meal. You sweep the rushes on your floor, the dry stalks rasping under your boots. Bits of straw, crumbs, and grit collect in a neat pile before you sweep them toward the door. The chamber pot is emptied into the cesspit, the sharp sourness forcing you to turn your head aside. You rinse it quickly before returning it to its place. The pottage simmers on the hearth, thick with barley and cabbage. The scent fills the hut, warming it more than the fire itself. You eat slowly, savoring the heat of each spoonful. The room is quiet, save for the occasional scrape of spoon on bowl, the low creak of the bench beneath you. After the meal, you sit with the fine-toothed comb in hand. You draw it through your hair, the teeth scraping at your scalp. The comb snags on tangles. You work them free with patient strokes. Now and then you catch a louse between your nails, crushing it before flicking it into the flames. The fire pops softly, swallowing the remains. Before sleep, you step outside. The lane is glistening under the moonlight, puddles turned into tiny mirrors. The air smells of damp grass and fading smoke. Somewhere nearby, a horse shifts in its stall, the faint creak of wood answering. You breathe deeply, letting the coolness fill your chest. Inside once more, you stretch out on the straw mattress, pulling the coarse blanket over you. The straw crackles faintly beneath your weight. Your eyes close easily tonight. The rhythm of the day has worked its familiar spell. You drift into sleep with the scent of wool and wood smoke still clinging to you, knowing that tomorrow will begin exactly the same way. You wake in the hour before dawn, when the world feels half asleep and time itself seems to hold its breath. The hut is quiet, except for the soft rasp of straw shifting under the weight-hold of sleeping bodies. A faint light presses at the edges of the shutters, not yet strong enough to chase away the dark. The air is cool, heavy with the smell of wool blankets that have been pulled close through the night of old smoke and of the chamber pot waiting to be emptied. The stiffness in your back reminds you that the straw beneath you is old, flattened under months of use. Still, you push yourself upright, the blanket falling away to let in the chill. Your tunic waits on its peg by the hearth, hanging with the same quiet resignation it always has. You pull it over your head, the wool scratching faintly as it settles around your shoulders. Its scent is the same blend of smoke, sweat, and earth that clings to everything in your world. The hearth holds only cold ash. You kneel to coax the fire back to life, poking through the ash for an ember, finding none, and striking flint against steel until a spark leaps into the twist of dried grass. Your breath feeds it, and soon the orange glow flickers upward. The first whiff of new smoke curls into the air, carrying the promise of warmth and the certainty of a smell that will cling to you all day. From the water bucket, you pour a ladle into the basin. The water is cold, its surface trembling under the faint tremor of your hands. You splash it on your face, the shock clearing the last of sleep from your eyes. Droplets cling to your cheeks, roll down your neck. You rub briskly, not so much to clean as to wake. Your hair, you push back with wet fingers, leaving it damp enough to lie flat for a time. Outside, the lane glistens with last night's rain. Mud squelches under your boots as you walk toward the pens. The goats bleat softly, their voices carrying in the stillness. You scatter grain into their trough, the dry clatter loud in the quiet morning. They press close, their warm bodies jostling yours, their musky scent strong and familiar. The well is quiet, just one neighbor ahead of you hauling a brimming bucket, hand over hand. You lower yours, listening to the rope groan as it unwinds to the splash, as the bucket hits the water far below. When you haul it back up, the weight is steady, the handle biting into your palms as you carry it home. The water is set by the hearth, some for cooking, some for drinking, and perhaps a little for washing. Your hands are already streaked with dirt from feeding the goats and working the rope. You rub them together idly, feeling the grit against your skin. A rinse now would make little difference, By mid-morning you are in the fields, bending low over the damp soil. The smell of earth rises each time you pull a weed or loosen a clump of dirt. The chill of the morning fades as you work, replaced by the warmth of effort. Your hair sticks slightly to your forehead. You push it back, leaving a faint smear of soil behind. At midday, you sit on a low stone wall, breaking bread with others. The bread is coarse and dry, the crust rough against your teeth. You soften it with sips of ale, passing the flask between you in quiet camaraderie. The sky is pale, the air holding a faint promise of warmth that never quite arrives. The afternoon sends you to the river with a hoe to clean and a small bundle of clothes to rinse. The water is cold, flowing quick around your ankles as you kneel at the bank. You scrub the garments against themselves, the smell of smoke stubborn even against the river's chill. The hoe's metal blade you scour with wet sand, the grit scraping away the clumps of dried earth. Around you, others work, voices carrying over the steady murmur of the current. Children splash downstream, their shrieks breaking into laughter. By the time you return home, the light is softening toward evening. You sweep the rushes from the floor, the dry stalks rasping against each other as they gather into a pile. The chamber pot is emptied into the cesspit, the sourness sharp in the cool air. You rinse it quickly before returning it to its place. The hearth fire grows stronger, the pottage simmering above it. Barley swells in the broth alongside carrots and beans, the scent filling the hut with something rich and steady. You eat slowly, savoring the warmth more than the flavor. The spoons make a gentle clink against the wooden bowls. Conversation is minimal words rationed after a day's labor. After supper, you take the fine-toothed comb to your hair. The teeth scrape gently over your scalp, catching on knots you work free with slow patience. Now and then, a louse appears between the teeth, and you crush it without hesitation before flicking it into the fire. The flames answer with a faint pop as though in quiet approval. Stepping outside before bed, you find the lane washed in moonlight. The puddles mirror the silver sky, the air cool and smelling faintly of damp grass. Somewhere beyond the huts, a nightbird calls. The village lies still, the world pared down to shadows and quiet. Inside again, you settle onto the straw mattress. The blanket is heavy over you, the straw beneath whispering softly at your every shift. The smell of wool and smoke wraps around you like another layer. Your eyes grow heavy, and soon you are sinking into sleep, the day's small labors already fading into the rhythm of all the days that came before and will come after. The morning comes in softly, with no rooster's cry this time, only the faint shifting of wind through the thatch and the slow brightening of the gray outside the shutters. You stir beneath the blanket, the familiar press of cool air against your cheeks, waking you before your eyes open. The hut smells as it always does at this hour, damp wool. From the blankets, the lingering ghost of smoke in the rafters, and the faint sour edge of the chamber pot tucked in its corner. You sit up slowly, the straw beneath you whispering as you move. Your tunic hangs, waiting creased from yesterday's wear, the same smell of smoke, earth, and human closeness woven deep into its wool. You pull it on its weight, settling across your shoulders, and tie it with the worn cord that always rests at your waist. Your boots are stiff where yesterday's mud has dried on them, but they still give under your heel with familiarity as you step into them. The hearth is a gray bowl of ash. You kneel, stirring with a stick to see if any ember hides below. Finding none, you take flint to steal the rhythm. Familiar spark catch coax with breath. The twist of dried grass takes the flames small at first, then licking upward. Smoke curls into the cool air, sharp and clean in its own way, promising warmth and the start of the day's cooking. From the water bucket, you pour a ladle into the basin. The cold nips at your fingers as you dip them in and splash your face. The shock sharpens your breath, clears the fog from your mind. You rub briskly at your cheeks, feeling the roughness of your skin under your fingertips. You run wet fingers through your hair, pressing it back. It will not stay neat for long, but the dampness helps for now. Stepping outside, you find the lane quiet and silvered with a thin frost. Each breath you take sends a pale mist into the air. The mud beneath the surface crust crunches faintly under your boots. You walk toward the pens where the goats shift and mutter softly in the chill. You scatter their grain into the trough, the rattling sound bringing them close, warm bodies pressing into your legs. Their coats are rough beneath your hands, the musky smell clinging to your fingers when you move away. At the well, a few early risers have already come and gone their tracks, fresh in the frost. The rope creaks as you lower the bucket, then splashes deep below. When it comes back up, water spills over the rim, freezing in tiny beads where it hits the wooden lip. The bucket is heavy in your hands as you carry it home, careful on the slick patches. Inside, you set the water near the hearth. Most will go to cooking and drinking. Only a little will be kept for rinsing. Your hands are already marked with the morning's work, darkened in the creases, nails edged with grit. A rinse now would be wasted. The fields wait. By mid-morning, you are bent low over damp soil, pulling the stubborn weeds that creep among the rows. The sun glints off the frost as it melts, sending a faint fresh smell into the air. Your fingers grow cold with the wet earth clinging to them. You wipe them on your tunic, but the chill stays in your skin. A gust of wind carries the smell of wood smoke from the village, warm and faintly sweet, making you pause before bending again to your work. At midday, you rest near a low stone wall, breaking a wedge of cheese onto a thick slice of bread. The bread is dense, the crust tough enough to work at with your teeth. The cheese crumbles slightly in your hands, its sharp tang bright against the bread's heaviness. You drink from a shared skin of ale, the warmth of it slipping into you in slow measure. Around you, others eat in silence, the quiet not unfriendly, but shaped by long familiarity. The afternoon takes you to the river. The water is shockingly cold today, the kind that burns your skin at first touch. You kneel on the bank to rinse a pair of woolen hose, dunking and squeezing them in the current. Without soap, the smoke smell will stay, but the dirt will lift a little. You wring them hard droplets scattering onto the stones. Downstream, a woman beats a tunic on a flat rock, the sound sharp against the water's murmur. Children hop from stone to stone, their boots splashing. A man fills a barrel for brewing, rolling it slowly back toward the lane. By the time you return, the sun is already low. The lane smells of smoke from every hearth, and from somewhere nearby comes the richer aroma of roasting meat, a rare treat for whoever is fortunate enough to have it. Inside your hut, the rushes are swept from the floor, crackling as you push them into a pile. The chamber pot is emptied into the cesspit, the smell strong enough to make you turn your head aside. A rinse dulls it, but does not banish it. The pottage simmers thick and slow on the fire barley beans and a few slivers of carrot. The scent fills the room with its humble comfort. You eat slowly, letting the warmth seep into your belly. The wooden spoon clinks softly against the side of the bowl. No one talks much, the quiet broken only by the fire's low crackle. After supper, you take the fine-toothed comb to your hair. The teeth scrape against your scalp, pulling free loose hairs and the occasional louse. Each one you find you crush between your nails, flicking the remains into the fire. The flames accept them with the smallest of pops. Your scalp tingles faintly afterward, the itch quieted for now. Before bed, you step outside. The moon is pale and thin tonight, the frost catching what light it can and sending it back in small glimmers. The air is sharp in your lungs, clean in a way that is rare here. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks, once then again. You listen until the sound fades into the night's stillness. Inside, you settle onto the straw mattress, the coarse blanket pulling close around you. The straw shifts beneath you, its smell mingling with wool and smoke. Your eyes close slowly, the day's rhythm pulling you into sleep with its familiar weight. Tomorrow will be the same, and the day after, and the one after that, each one shaped by work, by the cold bite of water, and by the smoke that lingers always in your hair. The wind rattled the shutters through the night, a restless voice whispering at the edges of your dreams. When you wake, the air in the hut is still but heavy with that damp, metallic scent that comes after a long, cold gust. The gray light seeps in slowly, touching the edges of the rafters, catching on the bundle of wood near the hearth. You draw your blanket tighter for a moment, holding on to the last thread of warmth, before swinging your legs down to the cold rushes below. The tunic you reach for is as it always is, creased from yesterday's wear, warm where it hung close to the hearth overnight. You pull it on the wool, scratchy at the neck. Its scent is layered old smoke, a faint musk of sweat, the earthy tang of yesterday's fieldwork. You tie the cord at your waist and slip into your boots, stiff at the toes with dried mud. The hearth is pale ash this morning. You crouch to the familiar rhythm, poke, search, find nothing but gray. Flint strikes steel, sparks leap and die until one clings to the twist of dried grass. You blow gently and it glows, licking into a tiny flame. You add twigs, then larger sticks, the smoke rising sharp into the air. The smell catches in your throat, but it is a comfort proof the day has begun. From the water bucket, you pour a ladle into the basin. The water is cold enough to bite at your fingers. You cup it in your hands, splash it against your face, rub briskly at cheeks and eyes. The shock wakes you completely, but the dampness clings, sliding under your collar. You smooth your hair back with wet fingers, though you know the day's work will soon undo the effort. Stepping outside the lane is soft from yesterday's thaw, the mud dark and sticky underfoot. The air smells of damp earth and the faint sourness of manure carried from the pens. The goats call to you before you reach them, their voices rising in impatient greeting. You scatter their grain into the trough. They crowd in close, warm bodies, jostling against your legs. The smell of them sharp and animal stays on your hands as you leave. The well is quiet today. Your bucket lowers with a creak, the splash echoing in the cold air. When it comes up, the water gleams faintly, a clean mirror to the sky. You carry it home with careful steps, the weight swaying in your grip. Inside, you set it down near the hearth, already thinking how much will vanish into the pottage pot, how little into the basin for rinsing. By mid-morning, you are in the fields. The soil is damp, but workable, clinging in dark smears to your hands as you pull weeds and loosen roots. The smell of wet earth rises around you, rich and grounding. Your breath puffs faintly in the cold, your fingers stiffening until the work warms them. You brush a loose strand of hair from your cheek, leaving a smudge of soil in its place. At midday, you rest with the others near the edge of the field, breaking bread and passing a flask of ale. The bread is rough, the crust thick enough to slow your bite. The ale is faintly sour, but familiar, warming you as it goes down. Conversation is low, the words drifting lazily in the chill air. The afternoon brings you to the river, with a bundle of tools caked in mud. You kneel at the edge, the water biting at your skin as you scour the wood and iron with wet sand. The grit works well, but leaves your hands raw. Downstream, a woman beats a tunic against a rock, each slap loud in the open air. A child gathers driftwood nearby, stacking it with care. The smell of the river, mineral green and faintly fishy, mixes with the sharper scent of cold air on your skin. By the time you return, the sun is sinking. The lane is full of the smell of evening smoke from every hearth, the faint sweet rot of damp hay in the barns, the sharp tang of the cesspit when the wind shifts. Inside your hut, the rushes are swept into a pile, crackling underfoot. The chamber pot is emptied, the sourness of it sharp in your nose until you pour in the rinse water. The fire is steady now, the pottage bubbling quietly above it. Barley thickens the broth. Beans and turnips soften in the heat. The smell is humble but filling. You eat with slow, steady bites, letting the warmth seep into your chest. The spoons clink softly against the bowls, a rhythm as familiar as your own heartbeat. After supper, you take up the fine-toothed comb. It works slowly through your hair, scraping the scalp, catching on knots. Now and then you find a louse pinched between fingernails, crushed, flicked into the flames. The fire pops softly at the offering. The itch recedes for a while, replaced by a faint tingling where the comb has passed. You step outside for a breath of the night. The moon is round and bright, its light silvering the puddles in the lane. The air smells of wood smoke, damp leaves, and the faint metallic tang of frost beginning to form. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks, answered by another far away. You stand in the quiet for a long moment, feeling the cold seep into your bones before stepping back inside. The straw mattress rustles under you as you lie down. The blanket is rough but warm, the smell of wool and smoke close to your skin. The day slips away as you close your eyes and the rhythm of life work, cold water, smoke, and the stubborn grit of the earth holds you until sleep takes you. The cold has settled deeper overnight, a still, sharp presence that seeps into the hut through every seam in the thatch. You wake slowly, wrapped in the dense quiet that comes just before dawn. The air has a bite to it, crisp enough that your breath mists faintly in front of you. Beneath the blanket, the straw mattress holds only the shallowest trace of warmth from the night. You stretch the straw whispering beneath you, then draw your knees up for a moment before pushing yourself upright. Your tunic hangs in its usual place, folded loosely over the peg. The wool is stiff from yesterday's work, and when you pull it on, it scratches faintly at your neck. It smells as it always does, smoke woven deep into the fibers, the faint musk of sweat, and a lingering earthy note from the soil of the fields. You loop the worn cord around your waist and slide into your boots, their leather cool and unyielding at first. The hearth is white with ash. You kneel, sifting through with a stick until you find the faintest ember no larger than a grain of wheat. You tuck it into a twist of dried grass, breathe slowly, and watch it bloom into a shy flame. You feed it with thin twigs, then thicker sticks, until smoke spirals upward sharp and biting in the chill air. That scent will cling to you again before the day is half over. From the water bucket, you pour a small ladle into the basin. The water is near frozen, prickling at your fingers. You cup it in your palms and splash it against your face, the cold biting deep enough to sting. It leaves your cheeks tingling, your breath quickening. You smooth, damp hands through your hair, pressing it back, though you know it will soon fall into its usual disorder. Stepping outside, the lane lies silvered with frost. Each step crunches faintly under your boots. The air is clean and sharp, carrying the distant scent of wood smoke from another hut already stirring. The goats are quiet until they hear you. Then their soft bleats rise into the morning stillness. You scatter their grain into the trough, the rattling sound drawing them in close. Their coats are thick now with winter rough under your palm as you push them gently aside. The well stands in a small halo of churned mud where many boots have passed before you. The rope creaks as you lower the bucket, and the splash below echoes in the frosty air. Hauling it up is a slow pull, the weight steady and cold in your hands. You carry it carefully, the wooden handle pressing into your palms with each step. Back in the hut, the water rests by the hearth. Most will be kept for cooking and drinking, with only a little spared for rinsing. Your hands already bear the morning's dirt pressed into the lines of your palms. Washing now would be a waste. The day's work will add more soon enough. Mid-morning finds you in the field, the frost melting into the soil under your boots. The air smells of wet earth and crushed grass. You pull weeds and loosen the ground for planting, your breath puffing in small clouds. The work is steady, the rhythm familiar, and your mind drifts in quiet patterns as your hands move. A strand of hair falls forward. You push it back with a dirt-smudged wrist. At midday, you sit on a low wall with others breaking bread and dividing a small wedge of cheese. The bread is dense, the crust sharp at the edges. The cheese is tangy, crumbling in your fingers. You soften each bite with sips from a flask of ale, the faint bitterness washing the bread's dryness from your mouth. No one talks much. The stillness of the cold day shapes the meal into something almost solemn. The afternoon takes you to the river. The water runs quick and dark between its banks, the cold so fierce it feels like knives against your skin. You kneel on the stones to rinse a few garments, the wool stiffening almost immediately in the air. Without soap, the smoke and sweat will remain, but at least the dirt loosens. You wring each one hard droplet scattering onto the rocks. Nearby, a woman beats a blanket against a flat stone, her breath rising in great clouds. Children balance on the river's edge, their laughter sharp against the winter air. Returning home, the lane smells thick with wood smoke. The frost has melted where the sun touched it, leaving soft patches of mud. Inside the hut, you sweep the rushes into a pile. Bits of straw, crumbs, and stray husks gather in the corner before you carry them out. The chamber pot is emptied into the cesspit, the sour odor momentarily filling the air until the rinse water dulls it. The hearth burns brighter now, the pottage bubbling slowly. Barley swells and softens alongside beans and the last of the cabbage. The smell is humble but rich after a day in the cold. You eat slowly, letting the warmth sink into you. The spoon's soft tap against the bowl is the only sound for a while. After supper, you take up the fine-toothed comb. It works through your hair with its slow, scraping rhythm. The teeth catch on knots, pull free loose hairs, and sometimes reveal a louse crawling pale between them. You pinch it between your nails, crush it, and flick it into the fire. The flames crackle faintly at the offering. Your scalp tingles from the attention, though you know the itch will return. You step outside for a moment before bed. The night is clear, the stars sharp and bright above the dark line of the woods. The air smells faintly metallic in the frost, mingled with the steady background of smoke. Somewhere beyond the village, a fox cries out a thin, strange sound that echoes and fades. Back inside, you settle onto the straw mattress. The blanket is rough but heavy, holding back the night's cold. The straw shifts beneath you, the scent of it mingling with wool and the faintest trace of the day's earth. Your eyes close slowly, and the quiet weight of the season wraps around you until sleep comes deep and dreamless. The morning breaks in silence, the sky a pale wash of color that feels more like the memory of dawn than dawn itself. You open your eyes slowly, the cold air hitting you at once, creeping into the folds of the blanket. The straw beneath you is still giving only a faint rustle as you shift. Beside you, the soft breathing of others fills the quiet, steady as a heartbeat. Your tunic hangs where it always does, draped over the wooden peg near the hearth. You pull it on without thought, the wool rough against your arms. It carries the same layered scent it always does, smoke that clings earth, that lingers, and the faint musk of long use. You tie the worn cord at your waist and step into your boots, still faintly stiff from yesterday's mud. The hearth is cold ash. You kneel to coax life into it once more, flint to steel, spark to grass, breath to ember. The flame blooms reluctantly, curling upward with a ribbon of smoke. You feed it twigs, then thicker sticks, until the room holds the sharp, comforting smell of a fire newly born. That smell is the signal that the day has truly begun. From the bucket, you pour water into the basin. It's cold enough to sting your fingers, but you cup it and splash it over your face. The chill slides down your neck, prickling your skin awake. You smooth your hair back with wet hands, knowing it won't stay in place for long. Stepping outside, you breathe in the morning. The lane is damp, the mud dark and soft under your boots. The air smells faintly of thawing earth, of smoke still drifting from the first fires lit in the village. The goats call for you as you approach their pen, their warm bodies shifting as they crowd toward the trough. You scatter their grain, feeling their coats brush your legs, the musky scent already clinging to your hands. The well is quiet, the rope groaning softly as you lower your bucket. The splash below is hollow and deep, the water's surface catching what light there is. Hauling it up the handle digs into your palms. You carry it home with careful steps, each one steady against the mud. The water is set near the hearth. Most will go toward cooking and drinking, with perhaps a little saved for rinsing hands before the evening meal. Your palms are already darkened by the morning's work soil pressed into every crease. It's not worth scrubbing them now. The day will add more. Mid-morning finds you in the field, the damp earth cool under your boots. You pull weeds, loosen clumps of soil, and clear space for the next planting. The smell of freshly turned ground rises into the air, rich and grounding. Your fingers grow numb with the cold, but the rhythm of the work warms you slowly. You push hair from your face with the back of your wrist, leaving a faint smear across your cheek. At midday, you sit on the edge of a low wall with the others. The bread is thick and dense, the crust sharp at the edges. You pair it with a small wedge of cheese, its tang sharp on your tongue. A sip of ale warms you from the inside, cutting the bread's dryness. Conversation is minimal, just the passing of the flask, the shared rhythm of chewing in the cold air. The afternoon brings you to the river. You kneel at the bank, rinsing a few garments in the biting cold. The wool drinks in the water, heavy in your hands. You wring each piece hard, your fingers stiff and red. The smoke scent will never fully leave them, but the dirt loosens the water running brown into the current. Downstream, a man mends a net. Upstream, a woman beats a tunic against a stone, the thud echoing over the low rush of water. By the time you return, the light is already softening. The lane smells thick with wood smoke, the evening meal beginning in every hut. Inside, you sweep the rushes into a pile, the dry stalks rasping against the floor. The chamber pot is emptied into the cesspit, its sourness sharp in the cool air, until the rinse water dulls it. The fire is strong now, the pottage simmering above it. The barley has swollen in the broth, the beans soft, the vegetables melting into the liquid. You eat slowly, savoring the way the heat spreads from your bowl into your hands. The spoons click softly in the stillness, each bite another anchor against the chill. After supper, you take up the fine-toothed comb. You work it through your hair, the teeth scraping gently over your scalp. A louse appears between the teeth. You crush it, flick it into the fire. The flames accept it with the smallest of sounds. Your head tingles faintly, the itch eased for now. Before bed, you step outside. The night is soft tonight. The air still, the stars pale but steady overhead. The smell of wood smoke lies low over the village, mixing with the faint damp scent of earth. Somewhere in the dark, a single owl calls. Inside, you lie down on the straw mattress, pulling the blanket close. The straw shifts beneath you, whispering faintly. The smell of wool and smoke fills your breath. You close your eyes, feeling the weight of another day slide away, the rhythm of this life holding you steady as you drift into sleep. The fire is low now, its glow a soft, steady heartbeat in the dark. You lie back, letting your breathing slow, the sound of the wind outside, just a faint murmur against the walls. The day's images drift through your mind like slow-moving clouds. The splash of water in the well, the crunch of frost underfoot, the scent of wood smoke curling into the cold air. They come and go without hurry, settling into the quiet spaces between thoughts. The hut feels warmer now, not from the embers, but from the closeness of the moment. The straw beneath you is familiar, the weight of the blanket comforting. Every sound is softened, the creak of timbers, the faint rustle of someone shifting in their sleep, the whisper of wind in the thatch overhead. You let yourself imagine that outside the door, the village is wrapped in the same peace, the goats quiet in their pens. The river murmuring softly to itself, the moonlight laying silver paths across the damp lane. No work waits for you here, not yet. There's nothing to lift, nothing to carry, no buckets to haul, or cold water to face. Just the warm drift downward, like a leaf settling on still water. Your body feels heavier now, as though the day's weight has dissolved into the air. Even the faint itch from straw against your skin seems far away, smoothed over by the steady rhythm of your own breath. You are warm. You are safe. The world is smaller now, no bigger than this room, this fire, this moment. And so you drift down and down into the quiet dark where tomorrow is far away and the only thing left is rest.